Thank you, Liam.
Everyone had a good day, I suppose.
There were definitely good things happening today.
Okay,
Today was
I
a
won't
good
say any
day.
more about that, I guess, at the moment, but Ray, I think you're the first one up, 7 o'clock.
Yeah,
And you're here about a couple of things, I guess, including the pond.
yeah. Thank you. And Lori, would you be able to enable me to share my screen?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right. And I don't know if she wants to, there may be a bit of an echo, Lori, because we're both in adjoining rooms, but, well, thank you very much for allowing me time on the agenda tonight. I want to talk about a couple of things related to McAvoy Pond, or more specifically, the dam. I guess I don't know that we really circled back over the summer, but all that work, the stop gate seems to be holding up well. Everything seems to be working as is over there. So I want to just thank the town again for all that work there. And then, of course, I think Joe Cuneo sent some plans earlier this week. At least I got some plans around the dry hydrant. That he's sort of working on trying to spec out and seeing whether that's a possibility up there on the dam. I want to touch base with the select board because we are owners of 318 Locks Village Road, which is actually the downstream parcel downstream of the dam. And recently, Dam Safety has told us that they're of the opinion that that property is also a dam owner. So I just wanted to, if you can see my screen, I just wanted to pull up. This is kind of a map of the dam. So what you're looking at here is McAvoy Pond on the right. The spillway goes under the road. There's the box culvert under the road that was put in 2001. Culvert wings, not depicted here, is also riprap that was put in 2001. And then the downstream property, which I am an owner of. And
Excuse me, Ray.
yep.
I'm not seeing, for some reason or other, I'm not seeing what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. You're not seeing my
Neither
screen?
am I.
No,
No.
I'm seeing a video about a race car.
Oh, okay. Let me
so
try.
I could see it. Did anybody else see what Ray had
I
up?
can see it. Yeah, I see the
Yeah.
map.
I could see
can't
it.
see anything.
Okay. You see it now, Dan?
I do, it's back.
Okay. You see the race car or the map?
I see the map
Okay. Okay, good. Okay.
at the moment.
So we've got the pond, the spillway, the box culvert that was put in 2001, the culvert wings. Not depicted here is riprap that's
Wendell Selectboard Meeting.
downstream of those wings. And so what Dam Safety is saying as well, because these culvert wings and the riprap
My move-in date is.
may extend onto your property here, that you are also a dam owner. And we kind of said, I said, well, but it's under the town's control. It was installed in 2001. I've actually got the highway plans right behind me that Richie's let me borrow, which kind of shows the scope of the work area was all around here. So the town kind of, put in the slope and the wings. So the reason I'm before the select board is to propose that, because really this culvert is town owned and all this stuff was installed by the town, and I'll just show you just a downstream look at the dam. This is just a side look. You can't really see it well here, but there's actually a drainage swale that goes down toward the culvert that was put in around that time. And then these are the culvert wings, and you've got all this riprap stone that was put in back in 2001. So I'm gonna stop sharing for just a minute and I'm gonna put up something else. So what I wanted to propose or run by the select board was, I mean, we're an upstream dam owner. We acknowledge our dam ownership. The towns work with us and acknowledges dam ownership, but because in essence, our dam ownership on this downstream parcel arises from the fact that the culvert and riprap and the slope there are going onto the property, but that really the culvert's under the control of the town. Presumably the town, wants to access and does access the culvert to repair. That what we'd like to propose is, what I'd like to propose is that either we extend a right of way or easement to the town. And I am researching whether or not we could extend a permanent one, because dam safety says that in order for this property not to be called the dam owner, it would have to be a permanent right of way. Or the other option would be to simply survey off the small slice, which primarily consists of the town right of way, but also, like I said, some of the stuff that's going above the property line. Now, how much goes over, I don't know, because there hasn't been a very close survey. I'll probably survey this off anyway if the planning board allows me to at least get it out of the ownership of this parcel. But the proposal I'd like to bring before the board is, since really the reason this downstream property has dam ownership responsibilities because of the town culvert and the the riprap and the way it's positioned through no one's fault, because this is built and, whether it goes over the property line or not, I don't know if there's a lot of attention paid to that. And I'm not, I don't think anyone was quite aware of what was going on or the ramifications of what was happening there. So that's kind of my proposal to the select board would be whether, and I know this would probably require a town meeting vote to either accept a right of way or an easement or a strip of land or whatever it may be. But I wanted to run this by the select board because of course, for us as a property owner, for me, it's an encumbrance on the property to some extent. We all already own upstream dam ownership, so it's not like we're asking to be relieved of dam ownership. We've done a lot of work in concert with the town to maintain it. So anyway, that's one reason I wanted to meet with you this evening, and then another was just to talk a little bit about some of the future around the dam. But
Okay, well,
first, I
let's
just
pick
wanted
up that one
Yeah.
first.
yeah,
And I can say from my own personal opinion that it sounds fine to me either way. It sounds like it's a fine point, and that it doesn't really matter to the town whether or not we own that little chunk of land or not. It is really part of the right of way in spirit, I think. And we've acknowledged our 50% share of the dam. So to me, it sounds fine. Gillian, what do you think?
I just had a question. So the survey that we're looking at, or the lot lines that we're looking at,
yeah.
as you were saying, it's sort of hard to say exactly where that line goes in terms of where the dam is.
It is. It's not. It is difficult because when this survey was done, it was more done to establish meets and bounds, and really didn't talk much about where the culvert ends and where it begins.
Mhm.
So either way, we may very well do a survey just to get that delineated. I can tell you that based on the highway department plans of the construction, it does look like it spills over the right of way.
Uh-huh.
They have a right of way shown, but then again, I don't know how much they were surveying, because there's really no comment. There's not much comment around there other than that there's a dotted line that seems to indicate the right of way, the property boundary. So what you can see here, this bold is theoretically the town right of way. The question is, do those wings go over? And even if those wings don't, the riprap probably does, and yeah.
So And your request would be, one of the options would be to have it be a permanent right of way.
Yeah, either a permanent right of way, although it's unclear whether you can, there are statutory right of ways defined, around roads. But whether or not a right of way can be given, that's actually permanent, or if they technically expire, I don't know. And that's where dam safety would come in and say, well, if it's not permanent, then, this doesn't do anything to change the status. We'll probably survey this out anyway, because I think it makes sense just to have it
Clear.
in common ownership, right? Somehow, whether it be with the town or the LLC. But at the least, the survey would be instructive to see where everything lies. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer, because it really just seems to be like the way that the dam is defined, it's where the toe of the slope is. So there's a slope, and the toe where that comes to an end is kind of where the dam ends. But it's all very murky, because all of that was within the work area when the bridge was installed, the new culvert was installed. So it was all kind of, I feel, kind of determined at that point. In fact, I think I have a photo somewhere that we inherited from the previous owner that kind of shows the work in progress. So, they just put in that sloping and the riprap and the culvert. So, yeah.
So the simplest thing actually might be for you to survey that out and give it to the town.
Yeah, that may very well be. And I have reached out to the planning board to get on their agenda to discuss that. This is a grandfathered property, so I'm not sure. Phil and I had a little bit of conversation. Planning boards sometimes do allow subdivision if you're calling one piece like it's not going to be a building parcel. But I don't know. I don't want to speak for them. I have not had a chance to discuss it with the planning board yet, but that would be something I would have to do, would be to be able to survey that out.
Ray, this is Phil. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I've had some more thought about it since we talked, and I know that there are other situations where towns have, culverts, for instance, going through someone's property,
Mhm.
or utilities have, their equipment on people's properties, and permanent rights of way are not unheard of. I just think if that was an option, if you found out the dam people would accept that it would save you the issue of having to confront the idea that you're basically eliminating your frontage
Yeah.
by deeding it over to the town. I don't know how that would. I don't know which of the two would be the
Yeah.
the better solution for you.
Right?
Yeah, it's a good point, Phil. And it's definitely something that we can explore, whether or not it'd be permanent. Because it's fun. It's a really weird contradiction, because the statute says, well, a culvert or drain that a town puts, they can cross property bounds and it's under their control. But then dam safety says, well, but if suddenly it becomes part of a dam, it's a dam, part of a dam, and the ownership's portion based on where the stuff lies. And what they told us in my discussions with dam safety, they're clear that just because something's under the control of the town doesn't mean it's not the same as ownership. So, so that's kind of, so I want to gauge your kind of, what you thought about this. My next step would be to explore whether a permanent right of way could be granted, and also just further exploring the possibility of carving this little piece out anyway. I mean, from a frontage perspective, I'm not concerned in terms of, there's already a structure there. As long as the structure can still be there with that decreased frontage, I'm not concerned about losing the frontage otherwise.
Gillian, any further thoughts before we leave this part of it?
No, just seems like that would be great to get it surveyed and kind of go from there. And after your conversation with the planning board too, to see
Okay.
what options there would be.
Yep. Okay, that sounds good. If we were able to survey it out, do you think that that's something you'd be amenable to? I mean, it would require a town meeting vote to accept it, I think, but I'd hate to go through the work if it's not something the town thought they would be supportive of, or at least the select board.
Sounds okay to me.
Sounds okay to me.
Okay. Okay, well, I will stop sharing now at this point. I guess the other, I won't take up a lot more time, but I just also wanted to discuss a little bit just about the long-term future of the dam itself. I mean, we've done, our history working with the town is that we did maintenance to get it out of poor condition, dealt with the sort of emerging issue that came up over the summer around leaking too much, leaking coming out of the outlet gate. And that was actually a fairly key thing to do. It totally came out of nowhere, but if there was something that was immediately going to fail on the dam, I guess that would have been it, would have been that outlet gate. But we are more thinking long-term around the status of the dam. I do have figures around the last inspection, actually the last two inspection reports, one done by Ty and Bond and one done by Lennart Consulting, who is my engineer, has basically said that really to get the dam up to better condition, riprap should be added to it, because there's a lot of riprap was washed out of the upstream half of the dam at some point, and also there's spalling and some erosion of the walls of the dam. So the Davenport Construction has given me a figure of around $45,000 to do that work, and I'm not. I would just want to be clear. I'm not coming to say I want. I'm not asking for money or anything. I'm just what we're sort of thinking about here as well. We're willing to work toward further improving the dam and getting it to a better shape. The LLC is, but long term, in terms of holding on to that liability, of being a dam owner, we're not sure what we want to do. And of course, taking down a dam, removing a dam is also a very costly endeavor. There are grant funds available from the state to both repair and to take down dams. And the fact that it's partially municipally owned does open up certain funding for that to happen. But I guess what I'm trying to articulate is that trying to figure out what a good future plan is going forward with this. I mean, the options are to continue to maintain it and improve it and get its condition up further, and maybe find a willing party that, at that point is like, okay, well, we're okay with ownership. The other path is to explore, study. It requires study first, what dam removal would look like. Now, I know that the town's working with us toward a dry hydrant, which kind of implies that having that pond there is useful. And we are in the process of finalizing that CR on the property, on not the property with the dam, but land that contains a lot of the pond. However, that CR is open in terms of being able to restore habitat. So if there were ever a project involving removing the dam and restoring habitat, it's not something it's possible that the CR wouldn't necessarily prevent something like that from happening. We purposefully left it open, knowing that, we just don't know what the long-term plan is here for the dam. We've been invested in upkeeping it and trying to improve it, and I continue to have that attitude. But long-term, we're, in terms of the liability, we're not sure. So it's basically, it's more just as a co-owner of the dam, it's more to just let you know kind of where my thoughts are around the dam. And, and of course, going forward, if we do decide, well, if I decide like, in a year, I'd like to put riprap down there and do some of those concrete repairs. Of course, the town as a co-owner, we'd have to have an agreement to do that, right? Even if it was me fundraising and getting money to do that. right, we kind of have to have mutual agreement when things are done. So, so yeah, it's, I don't know what I'm not looking for a conclusion here or looking for the board to say anything necessarily. I'm just kind of articulating that I'm starting to say, okay, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, what are we looking at here in terms of
Right, Gillian?
I mean, I know we've had some conversations around this, and I don't understand it all, but it makes me think about sort of, there's other like bridges and culverts and on the roads that we deal with. How do we keep track of like a capital improvement plan in terms of when those need to be fixed, or sort of do we address it when we're like, oh, that needs to be addressed, you know?
More like the latter.
Yeah. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's something that's possible to sort of do a survey of what we've got in town in terms of those kinds of structures.
Well, for example, you know, we do own another dam, the town does, at Fisk Pond.
Mhm.
And the way we found out that that needed repair was by dam safety informing us that the
Mhm.
dam had fallen into poor condition
Mhm.
and we needed to do something about it. And we did. We repaired it.
Right.
But I think, well, I've said before, and I think Ray's heard me say it more than once, that my feeling is that the town maybe doesn't want to own another dam other than the Fisk Pond Dam because it's a big liability and responsibility, like he said.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so that's my gut feeling at the moment.
Yeah.
I also feel that the town would support the Di Donato's doing repair if they thought that was where they wanted to go with it, but not necessarily that the town would be able to come up with any money for that.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's good that Ray brought it up because it's something that we should all be thinking about, and we've got some time to think about it. But that's my
Right.
initial take.
I guess I need
just-
to learn more about the shared responsibility. of
I'm
it.
sort of recused as a select board member from this conversation, but I did want to, I think I remembered, FERCog was going to do a culvert assessment. And there's also this MVP grant process that's sort of happening. That might just be something to keep in mind for this kind of conversations going forward in terms of assessing what's going to be needed in the future and where there might be funds available.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say that in MVP funding is definitely an emerging fund. There's the dam and seawall program, and there are also other entities that, you know, support both removal and repair of dams. So it's just more a question of long-term what to do. And yeah, unfortunately, yeah, you know, the town just by virtue of the roadway, of course, is a partial owner here. So, and we're a partial owner. So I think it's been going well in terms of our partnering here. I think that, you know, I think that, and the good news is that we caretake it pretty well. So we're here to be able to watch for things happening, right? It's not like, luckily, it's not just the question of when an inspection comes up, we be surprised, and you know, whether it be us or a not-for-profit or something that might come along around the dam. Certainly caretaking is something that we'd be willing to do anyhow. But removal is another, you know, it is another option. And I just don't know. I feel like we might at some point, what I might do is organize some sort of forum just to, now that once the CR is in place and just when the dam repair has been done, maybe just have some sort of forum to just let the town know, well, this is where things are at, and this is kind of what we're thinking as owners, you know. It's just, but yeah, I think it's just important to, I'm trying to do a little more long-term planning so that we aren't surprised when things come up. And personally, I am of the sense of continuing to improve and maintain it. You know, just study and engineering to remove a dam is costly, let alone the process of removing one itself. So anyway, okay, well, that's all I really had for that. But while I'm here, can I just say one more thing from an open space perspective? Nancy, I think you're going to be getting a letter from the Open Space Committee, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that I believe FERCog is looking for towns to prioritize projects for their district local technical assistance grants. And I know that they've supported open space plan updates in the past using those funds. And I think if those funds are usually around $6,000, $7,000. And I think if we got that amount of money from that technical assistance grant, along with what the town apportioned and money the town may receive from a not-for-profit, that's sort of going by the wayside. We actually that would give us enough funding to have FERCog completely support our open space plan update, which is something that's lapsed. So I just figured I'd mention that while I'm here. I think you'll get something formal from the Open Space Committee, like a formal letter requesting that. But.
Okay,
And that
Ray.
ELTA form will be looked at the next meeting, right?
Okay, excellent. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming, Ray.
Thanks,
Have a
Ray.
good
Appreciate
evening.
it.
Bye.
And Phil, you're right on time.
Oh, good. We hate to waste any, huh? So-
Speeding signs, is that mainly what we're talking about?
Well, that was I guess the request from the board was to update you on where we are with that. The comparison between that 1973 certification, which is a legal assessment of the proper speed limits, and the signage that's actually on the roads. So I've done that, but in the process of doing that, there is some confusion that's come up, and I'll explain it just briefly. But as I analyzed that certification letter more, they measured from hundredths of miles, and they measured the distance between actual speed limit signs. When I did the routes and measured them, I started at the beginning of each road individually and measured in tenths of miles as I came across one, just noted each sign was so many tenths of a mile from the beginning of the road. That that analysis of the certification letter also combines roads with their listing of the speed limits. And they're doing the hundredths of a tenths of a mile. So it's kind of hard to follow is all I'm saying. And it's hard to make an actual comparison. But I will say in general, it appears that the signage in town is pretty consistent with that certification, with some minor variations. I think I've come across a couple of signs that maybe been knocked down by the snow or something. But in general, that portion I think is not an issue. The issue is more at this point. I've sent the COG now 2 letters, and they offered to do a proposal for what it might cost for them to do the work that's necessary to recertify the streets or the speed limits in town. So the issue that's more prevalent is that we have 5 roads in towns that have no speed limits listed. The entire length of Farley Road, there's not a single speed limit on it. That's right from the center of, or right from Wendell Depot Road all the way down to the town line in Irving. There is New Salem Road from all the newly paved from Moosehorn out to New Salem. There's no speed limits on that. A couple others, there's the Montague Road by the State Park. Moosehorn Road doesn't have any speed limits, and neither does Lock Hill Road. So I've measured those out and given that information to the FERCog in anticipation that we're going to get that proposal. So they'll give us some idea what it's going to cost to upgrade the entire system of speed limits in the town. But, and I've also talked with, I spoke with Don Stone about his intersection, which is pretty problematic. And he definitely would like to see something here. We can put those cautionary signs I mentioned, the yellow signs up. We can do that without any kind of state approval. He said he'd like to see 35, and I think 30 might be more appropriate, just in that little dip where you go between those two. You go between both ends of Jennison Road and up and down that little hill where the bridge is and all that. So we're working on it. It's just, right now it's too cold to put any new signs in the road.
Yep.
And so it's kind of on hold for a couple of months. And then at the same time, I'm trying to provide the COG with enough information so they can get their proposal back to us, and then we can know what we're looking at. The other option that we just touched on briefly is we can just decide for ourselves what we want for speed limits and put them up. And they may not be ultimately they may not be actually enforceable should someone contest it. But the other option, we can still put them up and this police will give tickets. I think the idea that just putting the signs up and getting the roads patrolled is going to have a lot more of an impact than going through this, reasonably costly involvement of getting, properly certified signs up. That takes a lot of analysis, and they have to observe like 100 cars on a certain section of road and evaluate what people are using it at, that kind of, it takes some time.
Yeah.
So we'll wait and see when we get the COG's proposal. And I wanted to mention, Gillian, when we spoke last about this, you made mention of your driveway is awfully difficult to get out of. So I'm only making this comment to give you some idea of how valuable signs are. At the top and at the bottom of your driveway, within 100 feet, going both directions, there are signs that say blind driveway. So the signs are actually there, and that's doesn't seem to be helping you much.
But are there speed limit signs?
Well, the speed limit in that area is pretty slow. It's 35, I think, on that hill, right there. So they should be going only 35, and there's already the yellow caution signs are there for blind driveway.
Right.
But I'm only saying that to just, it's been given some thought previous to this, but
Right.
the signage itself doesn't seem to make the difference. I did see, that was probably something that concerned me most when I was driving around, is there's a number of those signs in town with blind driveways. And there doesn't seem to be any simple solution. If you live on the inside of a curve and your driveway is perpendicular to the road, it's pretty difficult to get out there safely. So maybe you might have the option to consider, widening a space beside your driveway so you could at least get parallel with the road before you jump on it. But that would mean only going down the hill to make it safe.
Right.
So I don't know how you can deal with that any better. I think I think that's patrolling the roads.
I was gonna
And
say, we can
getting-
invite them to sit in the driveway.
And what's that?
We can invite them to come sit in our driveway.
They could. That's been done before. Maybe not at your house, but other places have requested the police actually come and monitor, and that seems to slow people down.
Yeah.
So this is going to take, the course of the summer. The COG wasn't anticipating doing a lot of this work during the wintertime, but we are working on it.
So they'll give us a estimate to do the job.
To do the study, yeah.
Right.
It's an analysis of the road conditions. They actually observe a number of cars over a period of time, what speeds they travel. And there's a formula the state set, and you set the speed limit at I think it's 80 or 85% of the speeds of the average speed. So if, for instance, on that Montague Road, people drive on that road anywhere from 60 to 40, I mean, or faster. I've seen people, but somehow they come up with a formula that's normal and reasonable. Or like I say, I think for me, the more reasonable solution is have the town just decide what's fair, have the road commission present a proposal. And if people agree, we could just post the signs. And then, if people want to argue about it in court and we don't get the fine, well, that's not the end of the world. The more the idea is that there's signs posted and that there is patrolling. So at least we get the streets that are not covered in any way, get those so they've got speeds posted.
Phil, just briefly, that sounds like the best idea to me is the roads that have no speed limits on them is to put signs up.
Yeah.
And any place where we think we need them. And I think you're right, the study could well be a bit beyond our reach in terms of effectiveness.
Yeah, we did get that analysis, that proposal from Stantec. And it was back in the early 80s, and they wanted $35,000 or $38,000 to do this study. FERCog says it wouldn't be that much for them, but still, it's going to be some thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what the benefit would be. I don't know how many people are willing to go contest it in front of a judge when then it would be a judgment call. But So I don't know. I think I will go forward with taking a look at those roads and have the commission at least make some initial reference or recommendations, what would be reasonable to post.
Good. That'd be great.
Okay. So we
Thank
could
you,
start with that
Yeah,
and
sounds good.
with some cautionary signs. As another example, coming in on Montague Road, we make that just before you go in that dip if you're heading up towards town.
Right.
And there's a sign there for blind driveway, but there's no other signs that caution people that that's a pretty fast dip with a curve on it. And I'm sure there've been numbers of accidents over the years, but especially in the wintertime. So the speed limit's 35, but even that's too fast on that particular curve under certain conditions. So there's other places we could lower it a little bit.
Okay,
you.
good. Any further thoughts, Lori, Gillian?
No, sounds like a good plan.
Okay,
So
Thank you,
Dan,
Phil.
before Phil leaves, could
Right.
we skip over to the retirement of the plumbing inspector and
Yep.
perhaps a new appointment?
Yep,
that'd be great for me is, we had invited Casey Bashaw to be on this call. Are you there, Casey, by chance?
Casey's here.
Oh, good. So we can go right to that as far as I'm concerned.
So
Okay, yeah, there I am. Sorry, I was muted.
I think you're recommending this appointment, Phil?
I am. I've gotten to know Casey. He's actually done a nice job for me, and he's very responsible and respectful around the house. Does nice work. I've got a recommendation from our outgoing inspector, and Casey's also the inspector in Orange and Warwick. So I think he'd be a nice fit for the town. He's willing to take, and I'm glad that we're able to locate someone so quickly that we can just go continuous coverage here for that.
Well, I agree. That sounds very good to me. And I'll move that we make that appointment and then we can discuss it further if we can get a second on that.
I'll second.
Okay, and Gillian, you had something to say?
Nope.
No?
I can just say Randy chatted that he's a great guy.
Okay. Nothing like chatting support.
We'll take it any way we can get it.
Well, it sounds good, Casey. Thank you very much for being willing to do that. And
Yeah.
we're happy to welcome you aboard.
Thank you very much, and it's my pleasure to do it. So thank you, guys.
Great. All in
Okay.
favor of
And
making
I
that
also-
appointment?
I was just going to ask Casey if he had any questions about our procedures or rates or anything like that you just wanted to mention or anything like that.
I think at this time, Herb's been gracious enough to supply me with lots of background on it, and Herb's a friend too, so he said, he's always willing to take calls and help. So I think getting going, I don't think I'll have a bunch of problems, and I think it's Nancy that I would need to talk to if I had questions or anything like that, that I can't get from Herb. So if that's kind of the way of it all goes, then I'll stick to that, and I'll maybe have Herb help me along to begin with to make sure I'm doing your protocol, and if we run into any stumbling blocks, we'll work through it.
Sounds good. I'll put you in touch with Carolyn Manley also. She's the town accountant, or excuse me, town treasurer. And she does run there's some issues about paperwork and documentation of how payments get made that she'd want to be involved in, but we can just catch that along the way. That's going to work out well.
Okay, sounds great.
So we have a motion on the floor to make that appointment. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Looks like you're appointed, Casey. I think you can get an appointment slip from Nancy at some point.
All right, thank you
It's
very
on the table,
much.
ready for you to sign.
Good.
Okay, so before Phil leaves too, I believe you told me that Herb has been doing this job for over 30 years for the town. Is that true, Phil?
It is in that, I don't have the exact dates, but he came on right after the FERCog guy, not FERCog then, it was the Franklin County Inspection Program. I can't even remember his name, but the town was very unhappy with him, and Herb came on and filled in. He's been here ever since, and he just quietly and happily gone about his business, you know, from our benefit, from our perspective too, he's done very well. He's done good for the town. So I thought it'd be nice to
So I guess,
do something for him, some kind of
yeah,
commendation or
I'll
something.
write a letter, I think, if you guys would sign it. If not tomorrow, then for next meeting.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good.
Nancy.
In case you aren't aware, Herb is in his 90s, and he's been through some difficulties, and he's managed to keep going through it all and keep the service available to the town. Good for him.
Good
Time
for
for him to retire though and enjoy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's a go-getter. It's hard to slow him down. I can tell you that for sure.
Mhm. That's good.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Phil,
Thanks
can
a
I
lot,
ask
Bill.
a quick question while we have you? Is there a
Yes.
spot on the town website where we see the fees for?
I thought I did. I sent in copies of the plumbing and the electrical and the building fees. I can look, I don't go in there very often. I'll go and check it and see if there
Okay.
is. I sent in some of the forms that are available, building permit applications, workman's comp forms, but I'll review it and see if it's up to date.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, well, it's getting close to 7:45 and it looks like we have the full New Salem board here. We're talking about the unfortunate disappearance of Nancy. And I think we need to talk a little bit about how we're going to approach it, at least as a start. We do have some time, but I think it's good to get started on talking about it. Thanks to the New Salem board for all coming. I think maybe the one item under this heading is timing, when we want to advertise. Another question is who's going to do the interviewing? And my memory is that the last time we hired a town coordinator, being Nancy, and that was quite a few years ago. Was it 18, Nancy? No.
It will be 18, but I think the initial hiring when Margie first left would be 18, like last month. I think you hired somebody who stayed a month and left. And then somebody else was hired in May, who by the end of the summer still hadn't moved
Right.
to Western Mass. So I was actually your third choice.
Well, it was obviously a good choice, and congratulations on making the 18 years, and thank you for everything you've done for the
Yes,
towns.
absolutely.
Thank you.
I think that when we did interview for Nancy's position, we did it with both boards, both select boards. So it was a 6-person interviewing team, although I think Wendell was down one select board member at the time. So maybe it was 5 people that did the interviewing. Do the New Salem Select Board remember that? Similarly?
None of these members were on then, Dan?
None were on then. Okay. Well, does that sound like a good system to you folks of doing both boards together for interviews?
It sounds good to me. The only question I have is, are we going to propose that the new appointee serves both towns, which I'm in favor of. I think it's been working well and I would like to continue with that.
I would second that. I think it's been working very well. And we partnered with New Salem on quite a few things, and I think all of them are working out pretty well. Any thoughts from our board on that question?
Seems to work, so I can't think of a reason not to do that.
Gillian?
It seems that we would have a better chance of filling the position if it was instead of a little piece of a position.
It's more like a full-time job.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody else from New Salem, or is it just me?
No, I'm here.
Oh, hi, Jean.
Hey, so I'm totally in favor. I think it's worked really well to have this bifurcated jointly. We keep, I think one person in that position really helps keep the two towns cohesive. And since we share a school system, it makes sense. And we also share other things, so it makes sense. I think the only thing that comes to mind is that our town clerk at a recent select board meeting raised the issue of making it a full-time position in one town. And I think Nancy spoke to that, and I'm not sure that it went anywhere after that, but I'll just bring that to the table.
Okay, well, that's the first I heard of that. Nancy, what, did you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thought was, it's worked for almost 30 years. I think it works well. I think that you do have to get the right person in the job. I don't think it's the right job for everyone. Could the towns each work-wise support a full-time person? Probably. There's certainly a lot of other things I could do given the time. But I did say that it does require, some strong input from both select boards. I can't do everything, and it's been working well over the years that people do step up and help. If you want somebody to run the town, you're looking at a town administrator, not a town coordinator. And it's obviously, I think, more than double the cost to each town. And I don't think that's a great idea, especially in light of our financial situations. I don't think either town is ready to, kick in twice as much money. It's thousands of dollars, and I think it's worked well.
Good, thank you. I agree. Randy, did you have any thoughts?
Sure, I could always talk. I think that I've been on a bunch of committees where you hire someone, and we just would need a process where we would go through the interviews, the paperwork first before we get to the interview process. We also might want to consider people in positions like the clerk, for example, who might have important information to contribute to the committee. I'm not sure if we need 6 people, or, because sometimes when you're interviewing, if it's a large group, it can be a little bit intimidating. But I think that the key thing that we really have to think about is our timing. When do we want to start advertising?
Right.
I think our, the logistics of how we're going to interview and, how we're going to go through the resumes and et cetera. Those are minor details, I think, comparatively. Where we're going to advertise it, are we only going to advertise locally or to extended area? But also, if Nancy's, it would be nice to have a little bit of an overlap time so that she could do a little bit of on-the-job training. If we don't want to have someone coming in with absolutely no knowledge and asking us how to do Nancy's job. Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Right. Well, did you have any thoughts about the timing? I think someone mentioned that you don't want to advertise too soon, because then people would look at it and say, well, that's a long ways to wait or something. But do you have any thoughts on the timing?
So Nancy, you were saying July and September are the key dates. Is that correct for you?
Yeah, so my last full month of working every day will be July. Then I have 5 weeks vacation, and I won't rule out maybe working all of July and then maybe a day a week in August just to fill in, if that would work. So I'm thinking maybe the person should maybe start in July 1st. I'm getting us through the fiscal year, town meeting, and traditionally August and September have been the quietest months. It's a good time for somebody to come into the position. I'll say that, and every bad thing will happen in August and September, but traditionally it's been pretty quiet.
Well, if we wanted to have the person start on July 1st, that would probably mean advertising in May, something like that.
Start on July 1st or start like mid-July? Because if she's going to be there full-time through July, how much time overlap do you think that we need?
Okay, yeah, maybe mid-July.
Nancy, I got a tough question for you. What do you think it would take you to break in a new person? 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or?
Mm.
I know,
Considering I had nobody breaking me in, it just depends on how much, I can't,
I know, it's a
in
tough
2 weeks
question.
in July, you can't tell everybody everything because things come up all different times of the year that are different. I've started putting together a book saying in every, December, these are things that you have to do, licenses that have to be renewed and that kind of stuff. But there's
Right,
always
yeah.
going to be the unknown that, you just can't train for. And I think I was talking to Christine Hurd about, maybe not hiring somebody that has a lot of background in working in a town, but somebody that is able to communicate well, and has the ability to work on their own. You really obviously need to be able to do that. There's not somebody I can turn around and ask most of the time.
Right.
Yep.
Could
And there
you
is
put
always
together,
support from small town administrators.
could you put together a list of deadlines, like annual report, that kind of stuff?
Yes,
So
I
that,
have been doing it on a
okay,
month-by-month basis.
great. All
That is
right.
great.
Nancy, can I just, for clarification, because I realized I got confused, are you saying you would work through July and then take your vacation?
Yes.
Okay,
So I'm thinking a couple of weeks in July and then maybe, down to a day a week in August if they felt that even just to come in for a day or a half day, in each town a month or a week to answer questions that have built up. And again, I'm a phone call away if somebody is stuck.
Yeah.
And there's also the Small Town Administrators Group. That's a great group. I put out a call asking for sample contracts, and within an hour, I had 10 of them. They're very good at helping out. And if we go back to meeting in person, even better. I'm hoping that someday we will be able to do that.
Yeah.
so we would look at
But
having the
there are
new.
resources.
Sorry, go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, I would think maybe mid-July. I'm also looking at trying not to have too much overlap because I know it's costly.
Mm.
We could possibly talk about having them start in July part-time and then transition. So we don't have an extra full-time employee.
Yeah, if that's something that they're willing to do.
It might be something they can do to transition out of their other job if they have a job that they're transitioning out of. Possibly.
So, but I guess either way, that would mean advertising in mid-May. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I would think so, because it's going to take some time to do some interviews.
Right.
I would say even the beginning of May. I'm
Mm.
concerned about getting the word out.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Beginning of May.
Nancy, can I ask you, is there already a up-to-date job description and sort of qualifications list already done? And the second part of my question would be, is there anything that you think that should be added to that for the benefit of the town? Just wondering.
Yes, there is an up-to-date job listing that I can go over and, tweak a little. And without being disrespectful, God, no, there's nothing else you can add.
Okay.
I can't do any more.
I think
Right,
I
and
was mostly thinking like, what things that we have talked about, that we could have that would be extra, like grant writing or things of that nature. But you've also done that as well, and that's probably in the job description. So I just want.
Yeah, I help with grant writing, but if you want a grant writer, that's another job. That's, certainly not my area of expertise, and many towns have full-time grant writers. But, this job entails too many things day to day to be able to also devote a lot of time to grant writing.
Yeah, I think that another suggestion that was made was that there be a contract for the new person. And that's the reason that Nancy wrote to the group and asked for sample contracts, which we have. I'm not sure if those went out to the New Salem board also.
No, I can send those out as well.
I think that would be good.
You
And
know-
then that's, I think, a part of our discussion is coming up with a contract. It would be a good thing probably to have for the next person.
Yeah, and the samples range from the very simple one-page contract to, 7 or 8 pages in some of the larger towns. So, I would lean towards a simpler one, but still, I think something should be in place. It seems to be where this job is going everywhere. For both the town's protection and the employees, it's better to have everything spelled out, what the expectations are. I mean, it's worked very well for me, but I don't know. All you have to do is read headlines to see that it does not necessarily work in other towns.
Right.
Phillipston a couple of weeks ago was splashed all over the front page of the Athol Daily News with unpleasant things with the select board and the town administrator.
Right. And Nancy, would you be willing to take part in the interview process? Would that make sense?
Sure, if you want me there.
I think it would make sense. I think you've probably got a good eye.
And there was some talk in New Salem, and I don't know if you're interested in having a search committee. Somebody suggested that Margie McGinnis, I have no idea if she'd be interested in being on it as a previous town administrator. If you decide to go that way, I think Christine Hurd would be a good person to have on a search committee. But again, I don't know if that's necessary.
I was going to recommend that we get our finance committee involved, just so we know where we stand financially. Probably both towns, we should probably have a meeting just to discuss that part of it, especially before we post it. See where we're at financially. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And what do you folks think about a search committee? Do you think that the select boards can handle it, or should we make a wider search committee?
Well, what is the difference? What would happen in a search committee that we wouldn't necessarily do?
Well, it's probably the first stage of hiring would be a search committee, and the search committee would make recommendations to the select board. The select board would make the final decision.
So with,
And both interviews could be done in both stages or not, depending on how we would like to do it.
so the search committee is the interview committee as well.
Well, like I say, I think the search committee could do the interviews, or the select board could do them, or both could do them. The select board could just take the 3 recommendations that the search committee comes up with and work with that. But that's something we designed, so that's open for discussion.
Would
So
they
would
do more? Oh, sorry.
I'm just trying to clarify. So then if the search committee wasn't doing interviews, then would they mainly be doing the research behind how to advertise, when and where, or would they actually be going out and searching for people to ask to come and apply?
Yeah, I think they would be searching, and they would be putting out the notices and the advertising, and then depending on how many responses they got, maybe they just go through the written materials and pick out some people to be interviewed and send them on to the select board. But, the fine points are up to us. We can design it any way that we want to.
At this point, it seems like just another layer that we'd have to deal with, but I could be wrong. But just to do a quick survey, does anybody know anyone that's looking for a position like this? Because I have one person, and I think Jacob Ham was, his name was brought up as another possibility. He's our minute keeper at the New Salem Select Board.
Good.
Am I correct, Nancy, in that Jake was interested in the job?
I have heard that through the rumor mill, not from him directly.
Okay.
That's
I
very
mean,
great
he's-
because
Jacob's
there's a
very,
lot of,
I would say he's very qualified, but we're a long ways from hiring him, I think.
Well, it's good to hear. I don't know anybody who's would be good for the job at the moment, but
Okay.
good to hear that there are some people possibly that are.
And I also have a young neighbor. She's a young woman, but I believe she's qualified. That would be up to the committee to determine that. But she's very pleasant, easy to work with. So there's a possibility there.
this is Jean, I would just say, add to that, that's fantastic. Having, building from within our communities and having somebody who's local take on the position would be wonderful, who's already invested. I also know of 2 people, since I've heard that this is happening, has expressed an interest too. So it sounds like we're going to have a lot of potential, may not need a search committee. Maybe we could just see what the interest is locally before we venture out farther.
Yeah, I at least for now agree with Wayne that it may be just making things unnecessarily complicated to have a search committee, and that probably the boards can do it, hauling in a FinCom member or other experts to help. Randy, do you have any thoughts about that?
I think we're in January, and we do have a bit of time before May to work out those kinks.
Okay.
I think that we have to see what we're looking at in terms of how vaccines are out, in terms of how we conduct interviews and things like that. So there's a lot of questions about that as well. The idea of being able to gather in large groups isn't something that we can do right now. So we just have to be aware of, if we have a committee, how we're gonna do that. When I've been on search committees before, essentially what we do is people independently look through the applications, and they somewhat grade them, and from there they're collated, they gather, and they create a system so they can kind of look at the scoring model for the top people in the different categories to determine who appears on paper to be the best choices. On top of that, then they have to check, obviously references. You don't want to call the references right away. So there's a long process. You don't want to have everyone calling references. You don't want to have everyone kind of becoming redundant. So you have to have a process where there's a key person doing a key job and then getting feedback from everyone else. So that's my thought on the matter. I would definitely recommend, like when Wayne said, getting our FinComs involved. And on top of that, I know at least Stacy, our clerk, was interested in the process, making sure that she had someone that would keep a flow going. So I think considering, clerks as, I guess first of all, see who's interested, keep us as the central body. But if there are expanding wings, maybe there's not 6 of us here from the select board, maybe there's 1 or 2 select board members from each town, and maybe 1 FinCom member, unless everyone wants to really do it. So that's my thought. I just, I find the bigger the committees get, the less efficient they get.
Okay, thanks. Well, like Randy says, we are in January. I think we've sort of briefly, we've sort of outlined the questions here. Maybe we want to meet in another month or so and have FinCom members join us, something like that. That sound reasonable?
I would
And about a
think so.
month, you said?
About a month or so?
I think we can individually think about it, and then we can kind of address some of the questions that we had or thoughts, get feedback from people, see if there's anyone who's yearning yearning to be on another committee.
Right.
I know Nancy is. I know she's, she
Okay.
said, sign me up.
Okay. Well, thanks to the New Salem Select Board for joining us. That's great. Thanks for coming. At least you didn't have to drive through the snow to get here.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, it was a delight.
It's nice to see our neighboring select board members, I have to say.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Same here.
Okay, very good. Thanks for coming.
Signing off.
All right, thank you. And Nancy,
Okay.
what would make sense to go next, do you think?
So let's just go back to our order here. We got an email from Laurel Facey saying she's a member of a group that needs a large space to hold a small meeting and want to know if the Wendell Town Hall might be available for 5 people to meet in person, social distancing and wearing masks. And she was also advised by Anna Weatherby to check with the Board of Health. I'm not sure if she has done that or not. So I said I would bring it to the select board. And I don't know if that's opening a can of worms by allowing one person to use a building that's been closed for all these months in the middle of a pandemic, especially since the good neighbors, I know when they're done, do a complete sanitizing of the building. And I'm sure that, I'm not saying that Laurel's group wouldn't, I just don't know if other groups wouldn't be as conscientious, but your call.
Oh, go ahead, Lori.
I was just gonna say, I did send a quick email to Barbara about this, and she said, well, it's, it's under the 10-person limit. So, strictly it would be allowed, but she said, she might be okay with it, but she might caution against it as well. And one point she did make is that the Good Neighbors leaves all of their tables up now. So it would make it difficult, it would be more of an issue to put it in a way that somebody else can use the space. I feel like she said something else, but you go ahead, Gillian. Did you have something else?
Well, I was going to mention the Good Neighbors because I did notice that they've been leaving their setup up. So it would have to be removed so that they could have space to meet. And I guess I am hesitant to open the door to give approval for in-person meetings to begin when we've been trying so hard to have remote meetings. And I know there's a process for reserving the town hall to use the space. Is that just a general request to you, Nancy, in terms of availability?
Yes, but sure. But, I mean, it's been available because it's been closed. We
Right.
haven't entertained any requests since March.
But yeah, but in general, before the pandemic, any request comes before the select board. It goes to Nancy and she brings it to us and we always approve it usually. But it
I'm
does-
realizing I've only lived with the select board in a pandemic. There's pieces.
I realized that the other day when I saw you in person.
Yeah.
My God, this is really special.
At the grocery store parking lot. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'm hesitant to say town office, like town spaces are open for in-person meetings.
Yeah, me
It would
too.
make an exception.
Yeah, and I just looked back at Barbara's. She said one of her thoughts was if they couldn't find another space, maybe. But she also said, she's even more concerned because of this new variant that's out there now. And so I think she was definitely leaning towards not really being in favor, but leaving it up to us.
Well, it sounds like we have enough hesitancy on the board to ask her to see if she can maybe find another place. and we'd rather not open the building, or we'd like to think of the building as closed for the time being, with the exception of good neighbors.
It might be worth just asking why they feel the need to meet in person, and maybe offering the Zoom account if that's something they don't have access to. Depending, I guess, if they would need a town sponsor. Which they might be able to find.
You mean to use the Zoom account?
Yeah, that's what we had discussed back when we first
Sponsor.
opened that up.
Right.
Right, just so that we don't have anybody from the public using the account.
Well, Nancy, could you get back to her and tell her that we're hesitant, and isn't it possible for her to find another space or do it remotely?
Yeah, and I mean, they can always do, because she's talking about only an hour meeting, I think you can still do those free conference call kind of meetings as well that wouldn't necessitate using the town's Zoom account. So anyway,
Yes.
yeah, I can email back.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay, so then we got a letter from the Veterans Services District asking if we need any flags or gravestone markers. Is anybody aware of that? They need to order them by February 1st, and then we get reimbursed 75% of the cost. These are for the small flags that go on the graves.
Not aware.
Okay.
No, I don't know.
I can try checking the Cemetery Commission. Oh, I see Robbie is saying anybody can have a 1-hour Zoom meeting for free. So I can suggest that to her as well.
Yeah, good.
Okay. So then I had sent out a grant thing about electric vehicle charging station. And Dan suggested it might be a good idea for the town office parking lot. It provides hardware and installation costs up to $50,000, and it would be 100% for publicly accessible stations on government-owned property. So if that's something you'd like me to pursue with the FERCog, I can call them up.
I was going to suggest that the Energy Committee could take this on, and
Even better.
I figured you'd like that, Nancy. And this is definitely something that Greenfield has done, so I know a lot about it, and I don't know if you want to discuss it more now or just let the Energy Committee deal with it. But there's definitely a lot more to consider. For instance, they cover 100% of the install, but they don't cover tying into your electrical source. So that would be a whole nother grant that comes from National Grid, which is, I believe, 90% coverage. But again, it's then you're working through 2 different grant programs, so it gets more complicated. And then there's the question of, if you do put one in, you're going to have 2 parking spaces in that lot that you really shouldn't just let anybody park in, because, I mean, I guess it would depend on we could decide how we wanted to do it, but you might be sort of giving up 2 parking spaces in a place that might not get a lot of use for the electric vehicles at this time. So just choosing where you would put it might be something that would take some consideration. And then there's the question of whether or not you want to make people pay for the charge, because we will be paying for the electricity.
Right.
But often those cost money for the town just to have the system able to collect fees for the electricity. So there's a lot of other financial aspects to it, and but I do think this grant is probably better than it has been in the past. And you know, we've always thought we want to have chargers somewhere someday. So I think the Energy Committee would be happy to look into that.
Well, that's great. I actually went online and went to the, started digging into the application procedure, and it was pretty complicated, and I gave up at a certain point, so I would be very happy if the Energy Committee would take it
Okay.
over for now. Gillian?
I was almost thinking too that a different building might be better, but there isn't the parking space. Like the library seems like an ideal location because more people, I think, more people in the public are apt to go in and out of there and use
Yeah.
that while they go in and browse in the library. But there
Mhm.
isn't the parking available to designate.
Now, I can ask you, Gilly, what about the school? That might be another spot to look into. Swift River.
Mm-hmm.
Because I keep thinking the high school, but that's a little bit out of our jurisdiction, maybe.
Right. They have trouble with parking availability.
Oh, right, you have, that's right. They have pretty limited for any events anyway.
Though it's an option, but then also there too is the question about the cost of additional electricity.
Yeah. Well, I won't get into, I can get into a lot more, but
It's worth looking into, I think, and then having a conversation about it to see if it's
Yeah.
something we really want to do.
okay. So I can
Okay.
talk to the Energy Committee and I'll keep you posted.
Thanks.
Thanks, Lori.
Okay, so at our last meeting, we had talked about Good Neighbors considering applying for UV cleaning system for the town hall. And Jim sent a lengthy email back. I think I forwarded it to you, but if not, he said he would be quite dubious about using UV light as a sanitizing strategy, and he listed a bunch of reasons why. So I forwarded that to Good Neighbors, and they said fine, they weren't going to bother with it. It primarily comes down to is it's expensive and they don't work. He doesn't think they work particularly well. And some of them have been recalled due to ineffectiveness and for safety reasons. So I think that we're moving on from that.
Right, and I
The next,
think, from what I understand, from what Jim said, we're moving in the direction, or we could move in the direction of the ozone generator. And there was some talk about little ones and discussion with Jim about maybe a bigger one is better. It does sound to me like maybe we do want to buy one of these ozone generators and use it for, especially for the crawl space in the town hall, which is really the prime motivation for this to begin with. I'd be willing to go back and talk to Jim further, get more details and narrow down the price. And I'd actually be happy to do the work myself with Jim advising. I think that route would be much cheaper than having a firm come in and do that project. So I will talk to Jim about it and get further details and get back.
Great,
Dan,
thanks.
his note too mentioned with about the UV about the possibility of purchasing like 4 or 5 smaller ones. So
Right.
then if we were to do the town office buildings, that they could be spread out and do it all at once and cause less disruption.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll check in with him on that and
Okay.
get back to you.
okay. So the next item I put on the agenda because when I had to post this, I wasn't sure, but it does appear that we do have the high-speed internet installed in the town offices. I think Robbie helped complete that project. So our alarm company was out on Tuesday making the switch over, getting things hooked up. And I think, Robbie, they were also going to contact you. They had a couple of questions. They're coming back next Tuesday. Right now, it's just almost ready to go, but it hasn't, that final switch over off the copper lines has not yet happened. And I was talking or emailing back and forth with Anna Lawrence at the library, and she just said in the last warrant they paid for the monitoring from Lee Audio, and she was wondering if we could just hold that check, and I could check with Lee. If it's for the coming year, then obviously we don't want to pay them because we're switching companies. You know, if it was for the previous year, then clearly we owe it to them, so I'll check into that and maybe we can hold that check back. But it sounds like that switch should be made in all 3 buildings with the alarms soon, and then we can have Whip City come back and switch over the library and the fire station to UMA. And then I think the last piece in this office is getting off of the Crocker voice over internet and onto our own, and I don't know how that works either. But the Crocker bill continues to roll in at $670 a month. So the sooner we can make this switch over, you know, the better off we'll be. And again, I don't know if we can tell Crocker we don't want, you know, the broadband, we just want the voice over internet until we've made that switch, or if it's all rolled into one. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I don't know either. Maybe Robbie has an idea. Robbie, you'd be welcome to speak if you.
I don't know what Crocker's billing situation is either.
Okay, I'll give them a call and ask.
Okay.
Okay. So I don't know if anybody has anything on their old business, and then I have something that Doug Tanner brought up yesterday that he asked me to ask about, which is getting Microsoft software fleet for the finance committee and anybody else whose computer needs it. I know that this is something that Peter was taking care of, and some departments wanted it, some didn't, but the FinCom is at wit's end. They said they absolutely have to have this. They're talking about getting a license for multiple computers. So I said I would check with you guys to see what your thoughts were on that before he moves forward with finding somebody to take care of it.
You mean our thoughts about whether or not other committees would want it?
Right, he wants, you know, because, you know, we can call somebody to take care of this for the FinCom, but Joy Gorzakowski was here and she said that, yeah, that the road commission wants it too, that what was installed on her laptop doesn't work.
Oh, hold on.
You always say good name.
Right.
Well, should we investigate and find out who wants it and who doesn't? I don't imagine it's really much cheaper to do multiple computers as opposed to one. I mean, it's per computer, I imagine. You're paying for a license. Is that
You
right?
usually buy like
Yeah,
a
I mean,
set of licenses.
Yeah, I suggested that we talk to Lee at Tech One Computer to ask him, because I don't know anything about, you know, installing multiple licenses or, you know, a professional license or even a business license. I don't know how that operates. It used to be able to go into the store and you'd buy the CD, but it's all done in the cloud now, and a lot of times it's a monthly cost. So I don't know how that works.
Well,
But,
if the
you know, he wants
FinCom,
Excel, PowerPoint.
if the FinCom needs it soon, maybe we should just tell them to go ahead and get it for the FinCom.
Okay.
Yeah, if they,
I'll talk to Doug.
they can obviously know if it's in the budget. And
Well, we do have like a $2,000 budget for IT expenditures that we haven't used. So I'm sure we could afford.
Probably we should tell the highway department that they should go right ahead and do it also. Right?
yeah.
Okay.
If
I
it
was-
does, sorry, go ahead, Kelly.
I was trying to remember, I was trying to find it, but I can't find it quick enough. That Jim, we had started a conversation about what departments were requesting certain things for software. And I was wondering if what he had provided us with might have some of that information, but I can look for it when we're off the meeting, I guess. Nancy, did they say the specific software they're looking for? Is it just like Microsoft Excel?
Yeah. Yeah, he wants Excel, Word, PowerPoint, and Adobe Acrobat, and he said he doesn't want any of the free stuff that claims to be the same as, because it's not working and it's making it very difficult to do their jobs. They need the stuff that all their computers can run and talk to each other.
Right.
You know, I know that Robbie is not a fan of Microsoft. I see that he's not on the phone anymore, but you know, Doug was adamant that this is what they want. We'll accept no substitutes.
Yeah. Well, I'm not especially big fan of Microsoft personally, but I think they should go for it. It sounds like they need it, and I can understand.
Yeah, if
And-
they
and
find
speaking
that,
of the-
sorry, I was just gonna say, if Doug has any concerns that it would be cheaper to get multiple licenses, you know, I imagine, then maybe he can come back, or we can talk about that more, like if he's concerned about just buying one for the FinCom when they could buy many for lots of other offices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll look into it. And then, I don't know if you saw that the FinCom has found another person to fill Brandon Reed's position, Thomas Richardson. So, I mean, he's young, and boy, if he's interested, that's a great thing to get somebody on there.
It is.
So I have an appointment slip him. I think, Dan, you're the only one that needs to sign that one, because it also requires the FinCom and the moderator signature.
Right, right. Okay. Yeah, that is good news.
I support that. I know it's a family that's looking to stay in town, and I think that's great.
Good.
Good.
And that's all I have.
Well, on the old business, I did try to make it down to 40 Gate Lane the other day with a friendly attorney, and the road was so treacherous with ice that we turned back before going very far. It was deadly trying to get down there, actually. My own personal feeling about that situation is, for the moment, to let sleeping dogs lie, just to not do anything and wait and see what happens.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, the idea of auctioning it raises a whole list of possible liabilities for the town. And regardless of who buys it or how it gets auctioned or what restrictions are put on it or whatever, it's very complicated, and it raises a lot of potential pitfalls, I think, financial and legal. A big one being that the status of the road, because the status of the road is extremely unclear. All we know is that it's not a town road. And
Not really a private road.
And not really a private road. So I thought that probably the best thing to do is just wait on that.
Do we have the house posted? I don't remember.
We don't have it posted, and I was going to post it until Nancy pointed out that we're insured for any damage there. And my attorney friend said, well, if you have good insurance, you don't really need to post it.
Okay, so we don't have damage insurance. We have liability insurance. I mean, they're not going to replace it if somebody breaks the window, but if somebody comes and does something malicious and gets hurt and sues the town, we would be covered for that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And if somebody breaks the window, well, I shouldn't say this in public, but so much the better. The building is in really rough shape, and it's on its last legs, one way or the other. And that's all I have.
And I have been.
Sorry.
Yeah, I've been doing a little research on the utility poles along that route for the attorney, trying to figure out if there were ever any poll hearings for those. I checked first with the National Grid, and he said they have no records, but he felt it was back in the 80s or maybe the early 90s. I think he said the 80s, where the Verizon was installing all the poles, and one of the numbers on it said like New England TNT, so it would make sense that perhaps it was Verizon. So they're doing some research as well to see if there were any poll hearings to legally set those poles and who at that point owned the property when they put them in.
Yeah.
So I'll keep you informed.
Yeah, good. Thanks for doing that.
I remember when I was a child, I think the telephone line just like was on the ground.
Yeah.
The road.
Right. It's pretty primitive out there. It really is.
Yeah.
So that's all I have, I think, on the all business. Anyone else?
No,
No, I think we touched on it. Oh, well, Lori, the green communities, what did you decide to do with that? The curtains?
we have our meeting tomorrow night.
Okay.
So, all of the, I mean, we probably couldn't do a whole building with the money we have for the window quilts. So I think our next sort of thing to think about was whether we should pick and choose rooms in one of the buildings and do it that way. So I think that's, we'll hopefully get closer to an answer tomorrow.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, I can't believe we're getting through such a long agenda in such a quick time, but good job, everyone. And
Yeah.
Nancy, thank you.
All right. We'll see you all tomorrow signing. the
Oh yeah,
warrants
did you
and
want to
various-
schedule?
Yeah, I've been hogging the 10 o'clock hour. Would somebody like to take that, or?
No, I'm at work then. I'll probably have to do. Is there a need to get it done first thing in the morning, or can I come later in the day?
Later is fine.
Yeah, it'd probably be early evening. I'd get there, or else I'd go before 8 o'clock in the morning.
I have
Sure.
no huge need anytime, Dan, so you can pick.
Okay, well, I'll go in at 10.
Okay.
And if somebody else could go in the morning, that's probably good. If you could do that, Lori, maybe?
Yeah, yeah.
Then Carolyn can send the checks out.
All right. Well, if I get there, I'll either go before 8 and you'll see my signature,
Okay,
or after 4.
that's good.
Sounds good.
Okey doke. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Right.
Good night.
Bye.
Night.